Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordian Glory video. In today's video we shall continue our review of the 10th edition data cards. This time taking a look at the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Colonel Iron Hand Straken. That's right, boys, the bombastic hero of the Catachans is back and he's looking better than ever. He's got loads of new abilities as well as some of his old favorites being improved for the new edition of 40k. In fact, without further ado, let's storm that hill with our Devil's Claws, tear out that land shark's throat with our teeth, and dive right into today's episode. As is tradition, let's begin with a brief overview of who the hell Iron Hand Straken actually is. This is for our newer players who might be getting into 40k for the first time, and also for veterans who may be picking up Guard and starting them with the new edition. In the lore, Colonel Iron Hand Straken is renowned as Catachan's Man of Adamantium, and he is the commanding officer of the Catachan 2nd Green Vipers. His name comes from his unique bionics, which replace the portions of his body devoured by a land shark, which he killed mere moments later by ripping its throat open with his bare teeth. Straken is known as being larger than life and twice as violent, and he can always be found where the fighting is thickest, leading his men from the front in the traditional Catachan way. Straken is a hero to the regular guardsmen around him, because unlike so many officers in the Guard, he did not go to a fancy school or academy. Instead, he started off as a common dog soldier, working his way up through the ranks and earning his commission. On the tabletop, Straken has always been a unique character for the Guard because he brings something that no other officer does: close combat potential. Most Guard officers are purely there to support the men around them with their orders and maybe with some other kind of buffs or auras. Not so with Straken. His main focus has always been he is there to actually do damage. If you're looking for a character that doesn't just feel like an officer sitting behind the lines directing things or puppet mastering and pulling the strings, and you actually want someone who can get stuck in and feel like a hero, Straken is the man for you. But how does he hold up in 10th edition? Well, let's have a look at his stat line. Starting off, he's got a movement value of 6 and a toughness of 3. That is pretty standard for a guardsman, although historically that toughness is a little low for Straken. Normally, thanks to his bionics, he's got a toughness of 4. But if we move on, we can see he does have a 3+ save. Despite the fact that he's running around shirtless and in a pair of Vietnam combat trousers, he has the same save value as a Space Marine in power armor. That is thanks to pretty much all of the bionics and just how dead hard he is in general. He also has 4 wounds, which is the new standard for your Guard senior officers. We've seen that with the Castellan and with Creed. Again, this is a little reduction for Straken because normally he would have 5 wounds, but he can now lead units. We'll get into that a little bit more later on, but despite the fact his toughness has gone down, his wounds have gone down, he will have lots of extra ablative wounds and lots of minions around him that can tank damage for him. He only has a leadership of 7, which I find a bit surprising. Straken is known for being extremely charismatic. His men love him, adore him. They'll follow him into the Howling Dark without hesitation. So I would have liked to have seen a leadership of 6 there, but 7 is fine. At least it's in line with pretty much all the other Guard units. Overall, his stat line is not great, not terrible, 3.6. And I can imagine there's going to be a few Catachan players out there that feel slightly underwhelmed. After all, Straken essentially now has the same stat line as a Castellan or some other generic senior officer, but he's got a 3+ save to make up for it. What's the big deal? Well, the thing is, Games Workshop is trying to standardize the game. They're trying to simplify it. And so what they're doing is they're saying, look, a senior officer is a senior officer. And they're all going to have a very similar stat line. They have been nice enough to give Straken his 3+ save still, which is cool. They've managed to carry that tradition over. But what Games Workshop wants us to do is look to our war gear and especially our abilities to get the true measure of our officers. So you know what? I think his standard profile is okay, But I think let's now move on to the other things he's bringing to the table, because this is what makes him particularly spicy, and I am really looking forward to running him in 10th. So for his ranged weapons, the Man of Steel has got a plasma pistol and an auto shotgun. Now, the plasma pistol is standard issue, and it's not a bad piece of kit. I tend to find if you're dealing with tough units that you just want to chip a wound off before you start stabbing them up, the plasma pistol is a pretty good way to go. However, the auto shotgun is actually a pretty interesting piece of kit. It's got a 12-inch range and it fires 3 shots. It's ballistic skill 3+, and it's strength 4 AP dash. And that doesn't seem that great, but it's damage 2. Now, as unlikely as it is, the auto shotgun could potentially kill 3 Space Marines in one go. If you're particularly lucky with it, it could kill a Space Marine Lieutenant or Captain, because it can do a maximum of 6 damage. In the past, the auto shotgun has been a bit of a damp squib, kind of cool, lots of noise, lots of shots, but not much result at the end of the day. That has somewhat changed in 10th. Remember, you can't use the benefit of cover against AP0 weapons. That means if you shoot the auto shotgun at Space Marines in cover, they're only going to be on a 3-up save, whereas in other editions they would have been on a 2+. I don't think the auto shotgun is going to win you the game. I'm sure someone has had a case where it's taken down Angron or Demon Prince or something else, but I wouldn't necessarily overlook it. With the new cover mechanics and the fact that it retained its damage too, I think you could be pleasantly surprised when you pick off a Marine or two with what is essentially a free shotgun. But let's be real with each other here for a moment. We're not taking Straken for his dagger. The auto shotgun's cool, but the main star of the show is the choppy, and let me tell you, Straken has still got it. He comes equipped with a bionic arm with Devil's Claw. He has 6 attack space, hitting on 2s. So nice. He's also got a strength of 6, AP -2, and 2 damage. And the cherry on top, this thing is anti-monster 4+. Boys, we enter in an edition of Tyranids. Whether they're going to be a powerful faction or not, thanks to the Leviathan box set, everyone and their mum is going to have a Tyranid faction. Tyranids are going to be very common down the old club and on the tournament scene. And if you've got a weapon which is anti-monster 4+, it's going to be pretty useful. And even if you don't come across any monsters, the fact that you're wounding most enemy infantry on 3s, or maybe even 2s if it's light infantry, and you are also getting that AP -2, that damage 2, Straken is going to be cutting down 5 teams of intercessors left, right, and center. But wait, there's more! Because Straken has the Cold Steel and Courage ability. While this model is leading a unit, melee weapons equipped by models in that unit have the lethal hit ability. And yes, that does affect Straken himself. So whilst he's running around supporting his Catachan jungle fighters, he's also getting lethal hits. So even if you come across a mechanized or more armored force, you've still got the ability to threaten those vehicles, because lethal hits means on a 6 you auto wound the target. It doesn't matter what it is. Oh, but Mordian Glory, Straken's only got 6 attacks. What? That's 1 lethal hit statistically? Big whoop. Well, my little non-believer, my person who is lacking faith in the great green man of the jungle, let me tell you something. He's also got another ability. It's called Been There, Seen It, Killed It. Each time this model makes a melee attack, if it made a charge move this turn, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. That's right, baby. Full rerolls across the board. You're facing off against a tank? Why don't you just roll your dice to hit and you can reroll any of them. You could reroll the hits if you wanted to try and fish for more 6s to get more lethal hits through. But let me be clear here for a moment. Having 4 rerolls to hit and 4 rerolls to wound doesn't just make Straken viable against vehicles. It makes him viable against everything. That is a wildly powerful ability. You put him in against monsters, he's going to stack up 4 to 5 wounds against them with ease. You put him against infantry, he's going to be cutting down people left, right, and center. Straken against any kind of line infantry, whether it's a termagant, a guardsman, a space marine, he's looking at full hits, full wounds at a minimum of AP -2. Now, why do I say a minimum of AP2? Because it just says AP2 in his profile, Mordian, right? That's just what he has. Well, hang on a second. Because if Straken is leading a unit of Kazakhstan jungle fighters, he benefits from their jungle fighter ability too, which gives Straken and everyone else in that unit +1 strength and +1 AP. That is really big, because it means that Straken now goes up to AP -3. So those Marines are going to be on a 6+ save at best. If you're going against invulnerable save units, you're kicking them straight down to a 5+ or 4+ invulnerable save. And that could go either way easily. And then if you're going against vehicles, okay, well now I'm strength 7, which means I'm not fishing for 6s on the wound value against heavy armor. Now, even if you're toughness 12 or toughness 13, I'm still going to be wounding you on 5s. This opens up a whole new spectrum of pain that Straken can unleash. Only the toughest things, like Stompers, is he going to have to wound on 6s. But anything up to and including a Baneblade, this guy is going to wound on 5s when he's in a Kazakhstan Jungle Fighter squad with full rerolls. But it's not just jungle fighters, because remember that you can add another leader onto that unit. Any of the guard infantry choices, like your Katachans, your Krieg, your Cadians, your infantry squads, they can have 2 leaders stacked into them. What if we were to take a regimental preacher, add that into the mix? Suddenly Straken is looking at sustained hits as well. And that pairs really, really well with that full reroll tip, because it gives you lots of opportunities to reroll your dice. Even if you get some normal hits with them, but it just gives you loads of chances to fish for those 6s and to trigger lethal hits and also sustained hits as well. Straken could start spiking up with 7, 8, 9 hits from a starting profile of 6 attacks. But what I love about Straken is not only is he a combat beast, but at his core, he's still a guard officer. He's still a support unit. And so he can still issue orders. And what's more is he can issue 2 orders to regiment units. Relatively speaking, that's a big improvement. Other officers such as Creed used to do more orders than Straken. They used to do 3 and he only could do 2. When I saw that Creed's orders had gone down to 2, I'd assumed that Straken was going to go down to just doing 1 order and essentially be a choppy Castellan. But that's not the case. He has retained his ability to do 2 orders, and so relatively speaking, he has actually got a lot more valuable, because he can do not just support, but also direct damage to your opponent's forces as well. In my mind, there's a couple of different ways you can get the most out of this pair of orders. You could have Straken go with a platoon command squad, at which point you've now got 3 orders in 1 unit, in 1 big blob of Kazakhstan jungle fighters, but you've also got that Master Vox. So the platoon command squad could issue an order to the unit that they're all part of, and then Straken could use the Vox to issue 2 more orders to units 24 inches away. That might be more Kazakhstan jungle fighters if you're doing a big scout move forward, having loads of early pressure on the enemy, but also means you can stick those 2 orders going backwards, maybe towards some mortar teams, or more likely towards something like your field ordnance batteries. At the end of the day, however you choose to use Straken's orders, you are getting more of them into your army, and that is never a bad thing for the guard. Oh, and the cherry on top, I almost forgot, but Straken has a 4+ invulnerable save, which is one of the best ones we have in our index. Most of our officers lost their invulnerable. If you're lucky, they kept a 5+. But I think between Straken and the Lord Solar, they're the only 2 sources of 4+ invulnerable saves on our characters in the whole book. However, there are a couple of tiny flies in the ointment. Firstly, Straken can only join Katachan jungle fighters. He is incredibly limited in what he can use his leader ability on. This is a bit of a disappointment. Whilst him going with Katachan jungle fighters makes a lot of sense. They can scout, he can scout, they're geared towards combat, he's geared towards combat. It does make him a bit limited. But a lot of other characters in the game, even epic ones or ones that are specific to like Cadians, they can join, at the very least, a Cadian squad and also an infantry squad, right? But no, Straken will only Barney with his fellow Katachan jungle fighters. You can't put him in a basic infantry squad, which is a bit disappointing. I would have liked to have the option there. On top of this, whilst he is bringing a lot to the table, he's also going to cost you quite a few points. Straken in the index is 80 points. That is more than a Castellan. That's more than a Deathcore Marshal, and they're looking very nice. It's more than Creed. In fact, I think he is the second most expensive character behind the Lord Solar, who does come in at a whopping 125 points. Do I think Straken is worth 80 points? Maybe at the top end. I wouldn't want to pay any more for him. It is a 5-point increase from his 9th edition profile. And whilst 5 points is only 5 points, it all can add up. I think he's bringing a lot to the table. But considering that he has got a weaker profile, he isn't toughness 4 anymore, he hasn't got 5 wounds. And also considering that he doesn't have access necessarily to things like his old frontline commander, which gave him +1 to wound and double exploding hits. His profile feels overall like a side grade. And he was very, very good in 9th edition, so calling him a side grade is not a problem in any way, shape or form. But why are we paying more points for a character whose abilities overall, his damage output overall has probably gone to the side grade level, but his profile has kind of gone down a bit? Maybe it's just a case of he's bringing so much to the table. Games Workshop feels like he's doing what Creed can do, but also beat the crap out of people. I get that. And it will take a little bit of playtesting to see if he feels like he's worth 80 points. But I definitely think some people are going to be off-put by that price tag. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Is the Straken hype train still full steam ahead for you? Or are you reconsidering your position on the old Iron Hand? Regardless of which, make sure you smash that like button if you did enjoy today's video, and also subscribe to never miss an episode. And if you found today's video particularly interesting, please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, you'll be helping me create more content and also unlocking a whole host of perks for yourself. The biggest one being access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,000 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got 10th edition tactics, army list, strategy channels. We've got places for hobbying and painting. In fact, we're running a painting competition right now. And we've even got a pretty spicy meme section as well. In fact, I'd just like to take a moment to say a big thank you to all of the latest channel members. Thank you to Wah Tactics, William Holmes, Ronnie, Philip McCary, Fraggle, Adlaw, Tanro93, Adam B, Manny P, Wizzo55, Flowrider, Tyler James, Alejandro, Honest Man Dave, Mr. Kaiserman, Used Car Jockey, Clyde Tarkus, None of Your Business, Paul B, Enclave Vet, The Doom Melon, Boomber PMAK, Anne Krung, D King, The Bloody Talker, Peaches the Destroyer, Sangao, Traitora, Michael F, Kayla Watson, Carpathian, and Scott Collins. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to do a shout out to the latest Patreon supporters as well. So a huge thank you to Mrs. Rogue Merc, Raphael the Third Angel, Maximus, Dixon the Third, Ronnie Dodd, Nick Ellingham, Pink Guard, James Kiddy, Apollo Stratus, Meg Sumner, The Dark Warfare, Benjamin Hilker, Charles Hartman, and the Elder Kine. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bon Bon Vert, Mark Panconi, Ross Miller, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys, your ongoing and incredible support makes a huge difference, and it is a big part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.